My name is Josh Elohim. I will be your co-host today for the webinar. Just a quick background of BackNine Insurance. We are a boutique general agency focusing on life insurance, long-term care, annuities, and disability income. The webinar today will be on IRA Maxmization. I have Gregg Michael here who's going to be with me speaking. Just some quick notes here. Everyone's going to be muted for the purpose of the conversation. If you have any questions or you need any illustrations or quotes, all my information will be up at the end of the webinar to give me a phone call or an email. So let's go ahead and get started here. So I want to introduce Gregg Michael. He's been in the business for 24 plus years now. He's worked with several major life insurance carriers, and now he works for Symetra. So Gregg will give you a quick little rundown of Symetra, and let's go ahead and have some fun here. Go ahead, Gregg.
Thank you, Josh, and welcome everyone to the call. Thank you for taking the time today to listen to more about Symetra Financial and also about, I think, a very hot topic, IRA Maxmization. This is not a new concept. This is something that the industry has been talking about for years. But I think the reason that Symetra is talking about it so much is that when you look at the products that you need to illustrate and to present to your clients for ideas like IRA Maxmization, these are really traditional guaranteed UL sales ideas. And there's really no better company right now who's better positioned in the GUL space than Symetra Financial. Some of you might not know who Symetra is. Let me just give you a little bit of background in terms of the company. This company dates back to 1957. We were part of Safeco, and we were actually the life, annuity, and employee benefits division of Safeco. Fast forward to 2004, and an investment group led by Warren Buffett bought this company for about $1.5 billion, took it private, renamed it Symetra Financial. 6 years later, in 2010, a new CEO, the former president of the Hartford, Tom Mara, was brought in to lead this company. And what Tom did over the next several years is really kind of align himself in this company with some of the best leaders in the industry, from underwriting, distribution, product development, and we really are the next great national player in the life insurance space. And the unique thing about this company is that we didn't sell GUL prior to 2013. So when you see a lot of the bigger names in the industry that sold so much GUL for the last 2 decades, and many of these companies have either priced their products up so much where they're not competitive as they used to be, or in many cases they've gotten out of the space in totality. And I think the reason for that has more to do with the financials and the strain that those companies were dealing with interest rates creeping down each and every year, and these carriers had a hard time sustaining this very popular product platform. Symetra, again, never sold any of this until 2013. So we have the best portfolio of GUL products, and we also have some great turnkey solutions like IRA Max. So let's go ahead and dive right into the presentation and talk about why this is a perfect time to present this solution to your clients. On slide 2, we're going to look at the marketplace in general for IRAs. Now, this data is from 2013, but it says here that there's over $7.2 trillion in assets sitting inside of IRAs. Now, a new report just came out from a company in Boston called Cerulli and Associates, and that number is actually expected to be close to $13 trillion in 4 short years. And so when you look at an area for all of us to kind of mine for the next great sale, you're looking at a gigantic opportunity in the IRA space, assets upwards of $13 trillion in 4 short years. On the next slide, what we also know is that 8 in 10, 80% of the IRAs that are out there are traditional or standard IRAs. And I know that most of you know what this means or what a standard IRA is, but for those who just want a refresher, a standard or traditional IRA is funded with pre-tax dollars. The IRA grows on a tax-deferred basis, and then the money when it comes out is taxable. And we all know that RMDs, required minimum distributions, will come out and will be forced at age 70 and a half if a client doesn't pull money out of that account prior to. And so we know that there's a ton of money sitting in the IRA space. We know that the vast majority of these IRAs are traditional. But what makes a traditional or standard IRA such a great tool for retirement planning, the tax deferral, makes them very inefficient and among the worst assets to hold at death and to transfer on. And so for those clients that you have that have their retirement income needs met by other sources, and they're sitting on an asset of $500,000, $600,000, $1 million that they simply plan on leaving as a legacy asset to their kids, this IRA, we've got to come up with a solution to help our clients do two things. Number one is to mitigate income and potentially estate taxes. And number two is to facilitate an efficient transfer of that asset from one generation to the next. Now, on the next slide, what we know about the traditional IRA marketplace is that the best thing clients can do is when those assets are passed along to the next generation, we want to make sure that the kids or the non-spouse beneficiaries inherit this money and do not take a single lump sum distribution. That would be among the worst things to do because there's a huge income tax bill that would be paid, and the net, a much smaller net distribution, would be given to those kids. So the very thing we want to do is make sure that those kids adopt a very traditional approach called the stretch IRA. And to go over this, again on slide 4, we're going to insert an example or a case study here. We have a client who's age 70. We're assuming this guy, let's just call him Jack. Jack's in good health. He's got 3 kids, and his oldest beneficiary is 40 years old. Now, for the sake of simplicity here, we're going to assume that Jack's wife is no longer alive. And we're going to take this $800,000 IRA, we're going to grow it at 4%, and we're going to assume that he's in a 33% income tax bracket. So as you see this slide play out, we know that at age 70 and a half, Jack has to start taking out those required minimum distributions. And as the name connotes, this is not something that's arbitrary or optional. He has to start taking out those RMDs. And if he decides either intentionally or accidentally forgets to take out the RMD in a given year, there will be a 50% penalty tax on that distribution, and he has to go back and take that distribution that he missed, as well as the current year. And so Jack here is going to see his asset of $800,000 over the next 16 years, assuming that's his life expectancy until he dies at age 86. His asset's going to shrink down to $640,815. Now, what the traditional stretch IRA shows us in the next page, we're on slide 5 here, is that the kids, now again, the 40-year-old beneficiary is 17 years older, so he's 57 years old. And a traditional stretch IRA says that we're going to take the oldest beneficiary's life expectancy, which in this case would be 28 years, and we're going to stretch out those required minimum distributions and stretch out the tax deferral for a much longer period of time. And what that means to those 3 kids is that now instead of taking that lump sum distribution and having a $200,000 tax hit, they're going to be able to pull out $764,502 over a 28-year period on a net after-tax basis. And so again, in the IRA planning space, all of you know that we want to make sure that if they do nothing else, that those kids adopt a traditional stretch IRA approach. Now, this is a really good plan, but as we all know, we can do something better, and that's using life insurance. Now, a word on the kind of product that you want to utilize for a stretch IRA using life insurance strategy. This is not something where we want to introduce an IUL, a VUL, or a current assumption product. We want to make sure that everything that we recommend to the client here is contractually guaranteed. And again, in the guaranteed universal life space, whether we're talking about single life or survivorship, Symetra is the #1 carrier in that space in most situations. So here, we're going to go back to Jack's lifetime. And here's Jack's $800,000 IRA. And again, he has to start taking out those RMDs this year. All we're going to ask Jack is, look, Jack, if you're like 34% of Americans who take their RMDs, they simply reinvest those dollars back into the IRA. You don't need this money because you've told us that you've got your other retirement income needs met by other sources. So instead of just leaving $764,000 over a 28-year period to your kids, why don't we take $20,000 of your RMD out each and every year, and we're going to put that into an irrevocable life insurance trust that will take out life insurance on his life. And again, we're assuming Jack's in good health, a preferred non-smoker. So let's take a look at the impact of now just siphoning off $20,000 a year and buying a policy from Symetra. Now, as you see here on slide number 7, $745,627,000 is the amount of life insurance on a guaranteed contractual basis that we now send directly to the ILET as soon as Jack dies. Now, just like in the prior example of the traditional stretch, we're going to take that same $640,000 distribution that the kids inherit, and the year after Jack dies, they're going to start taking those RMDs over a 28-year period and pull out now over $700,000 on the stretch IRA alone. So the combined benefits of using the stretch plus life insurance is over $1.5 million. And so as we're seeing now on slide number 8, this all comes down to a very simple question that we ask those clients that have their retirement income needs met and they're sitting on an asset they want to leave to their kids. which legacy would you rather leave for your children? One that pays out, in this case, a traditional stretch IRA of $764,000, or one that pays over 97% more at $1.5 million. So again, this is not a new idea. Sometimes the best ideas are the ones that we've been selling for years. I think one of the unintended consequences of life insurance companies moving away from the GUL space, not because clients don't want it. There's as high of a demand for GUL today as there ever has been. But one of the unintended consequences of those traditional companies getting out of the space is you're not hearing about these ideas anymore. Traditional concepts like IRA Max, Annuity Max, Dynasty Trust, life insurance as an asset class. These are all things that Symetra is really focusing in on. And we've got turnkey solutions like this that we can prepare for each and every one of your cases through BackNine. So on slide 9, let's just take a look at the profiling of who would be the ideal client who would benefit from this strategy. I would say someone who's 60 years or older at the very least. I think the best place to start, frankly, is someone who's already 70 and a half and are already taking those RMDs. Then you can simply find out how they're spending those RMDs. The second thing we want to make sure is that these clients plan to leave their IRA assets to their kids. And this is connected to the fourth bullet point, which says here that they have the retirement income needs met by other sources. These folks also need to make sure that they're going to use that traditional stretch IRA approach. They desire more control over how distributions are made to their beneficiaries. And simply the last bullet point here is they want to leave a larger legacy to their beneficiaries. And the title of this presentation, the title of this concept is called IRA Maxmization. So what we're trying to do here is simply that. Maximize that IRA for the benefit of the next generation. Now, a word about Symetra on slide 10 here. We, again, have a great portfolio of GUL products, which is an ideal starting point for this strategy. But we also have a couple of chronic illness riders. Now, these are not yet available in California, but we're working hard to try to get these approved. These chronic illness riders really allow the client, if for, in some situation, let's say Jack in 5 years develops some kind of a chronic event, chronic illness. The benefit of having one of our chronic illness riders attached to the contract is that those kids can preserve that IRA and not have to tap into it to pay those chronic illness expenses or long-term care expenses. We can tap into the death benefit of the contract 100% and preserve that IRA for the next generation. We also have a charitable giving rider, which is unique. In addition to the death benefit paid out to the kids on every single case, Symetra pays out on our single life and our survivorship 1% of the death benefit to any named charity of your client's choosing. It's called the charitable giving rider. And again, feel free to ask BackNine for more information on any of these riders. But the last bullet point here is that we have the ability to customize each client presentation for this concept and about 6 or 7 others. So the last slide of this presentation simply gives you a visual of what the IRA Maxmization kit looks like. There's going to be a fact finder. There's going to be a flyer that talks about the concept in general. There's also going to be a 9-page presentation. And again, what I'd like to do now is leave the PowerPoint and start opening up these additional handouts. There are 3 additional flyers that we've included here. The first one is the IRA Maxmization Fact Finder. And this fact finder is a very simple one-pager that talks about all the different information we're going to need in order to prepare a customized design presentation for your client. Information about the client, information about the beneficiaries, their dates of birth, because we are going to use the IRA stretch as a key part of this design. We want to know more about their estate size, about the assumed interest rate we're going to use to grow their assets. And of course, we also want to know details about the IRA. The next flyer we're going to look at is simply a marketing piece, a marketing flyer. And you'll recognize when you look at this flyer that all the information that we just talked about in the PowerPoint is captured here in this exact same case study with the same guy, Jack, 70 years old, and how we got the ability now to maximize this $640,000 asset with all the information and all the details that I just captured are here on the flyer. But the last thing I want to mention here is the client presentation. And this one's the one entitled IRA Max Sample Presentation. This is a 9-page PDF that we put together when you send BackNine the 1-page fact finder information. And again, you're going to see a lot of information here that walks you through the concept. On slide number or page number 3, you're going to see a schematic about the stretch IRA using life insurance. But the most important page is slide number 5. And on slide number 5, you're going to see the 3 options here, or door number 1, 2, and 3. The first option is the client's kids take the lump sum distribution. This would be the worst of all options here available. In this situation, if the client's kids inherited $640,000, they would pay over $200,000 in taxes, and they would receive $429,000 that they would then divide between the 3 kids. That's the worst option. If they do nothing else, we want to make sure the kids simply use a stretch IRA, and that's where they're going to see a $764,502 net distribution to the 3 kids, again, over the lifetime of the oldest beneficiary. But the best option, as we just talked about, is using the stretch IRA along with life insurance, which nets $1.5 million to the kids. The remaining pages of the presentation simply walk you through the IRA calculation, the RMD calculations. You'll notice that we give you a year-by-year analysis. This is a very thorough and a very customizable presentation for your client. And the remaining page is simply to show you on a numerical analysis the difference between doing a stretch and doing a stretch IRA with life insurance. So again, this is something that we're very excited about at Symetra. We're more than just, as I would say, a pretty face. We're more than just a great product or a couple of great products. We've certainly got that. But we think that advisors like all of you and our distribution partners like BackNine, you need concepts, you need ideas, you need turnkey solutions that identify ways for all of you to go out there and talk to your clients about uncovering sales opportunities that will benefit them and, frankly, benefit all of you. In this simple case we just talked about, a $745,000 death benefit, $20,000 premium that carries a $25,000 target premium. So again, these are great cases. They're out there in droves, and as you see by the numbers that we just talked about, this is a $12 trillion market opportunity in 4 short years, so the time is perfect to talk to your clients about this. So Josh, without further ado, I guess we can turn it over back to you. My formal presentation comments are done.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. I really appreciate your time and all the information here. So I had just a few quick questions for you. I have heard through the grapevine that Obama was planning on trying to kill the stretch IRA. Just want to know what your thought process was on that.
Yeah, so in 2013, 2015, and in the most recent 2016 budget proposal, if you just Google 2016 Obama budget proposal and you Google stretch IRA, you'll find documentation as I have, and there's hundreds of pages out there, and I'm happy to tell you specifically where it is. But yes, he's tried now for 3 consecutive, actually skipped year 2014, to effectively kill the stretch IRA. What he wants to do is for any non-spousal beneficiary, in this case the kids of our example Jack, he wants the kids in this situation to be forced to take out all distributions from the IRA within 5 years, which would mean that you're, in this case, foregoing all those 28 years of continued tax deferral and continued deferral of those, not deferral, but maximizing and stretching out those RMDs. He's trying to push that into 5 years so that the benefit to those beneficiaries, instead of being $764,000, would probably be in the neighborhood of $400,000 and change, because each of those 5 years of distributions would be fully taxable, and by the end of that 5th year, there'd be 0 left. So the great thing about that opportunity, though, is if and when that does happen, and we think there's probably a better than 50% chance that it'll happen, is that for those clients that don't need this asset, and this is who we're talking about, instead of putting in $20,000, which is the minimum premium based on his RMD, if Obama's right, or if he's successful, we're going to ask that client to put in $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year and bleed that thing dry over a much shorter period of time and buy a lot more death benefit on a guaranteed contractual basis, which will still net out a lot more of a benefit to the kids. And so I guess the benefit there, or the good thing about Obama's proposal, is that if it does happen, we're going to sell a lot more insurance.
Perfect. I really appreciate that that information there. So if I'm a financial planner and I have clients in this space here, what would you say the next step is for me?
Well, again, as I kind of alluded to, everyone has clients that has an IRA. I mean, I've got 2 of them. You've got several. My wife has. We all have an IRA or multiple IRAs. What I would do is start with those clients who are age 70 and a half that are already taking RMDs, and simply ask that client, and you probably already know if you're managing those assets, ask them what they're doing with those assets. I was talking to my financial advisor at a major financial institution. We were just talking about this concept the other day, and she knows exactly where to go to find those types of clients that don't need the asset for their personal consumption. They're going to plan on leaving it behind to their kids. And if that's their plan, of course you want to look at any and all strategy to maximize that distribution or maximize that legacy. So start with those people that are already taking those RMDs, find out how they're spending them, and then simply offer a very simple, contractually guaranteed way to maximize and leverage this strategy. And I think that's the most important thing. You know, again, a lot of companies have moved away from GUL. Here comes a brand new company in many ways, Symetra, who is doubling down on the GUL space. This is an incredibly powerful product. Everything is contractually guaranteed. So whether we're talking about money in an IRA, money in an annuity, or money that a 70-year-old lady has sitting in a trust that she wants to leave for her next generation, we want to find ways to maximize that legacy transfer. And that's what GUL does.
Greg, I really appreciate that information. And just a heads up to the listeners, I actually have a case right now with one of my agents. It's a 70-year-old female, and we're using, we took $55,000 of RMD money that she did not need, and it's going to buy roughly about $2.8 million of death benefits. So these cases are happening, they are real, and they're very exciting.
And I have to ask you, Josh, are you using Symetra on that case?
100%.
No, I know you are.
So
I know the case you're talking about.
The last thing here as well is that we can brand the marketing material that Greg just mentioned here with your information. Our goal is not to market ourselves, but really to market you, the client. So Greg will get us the slides here, and we'll go ahead and market any information, any logo that you guys want to put on there. As you see, my information is up here. Please give me a phone call or send me an email. Love the chance to talk to you about that opportunity, as well as any cases that you're potentially thinking about. Again, thank you, Greg, for all your time here, and I appreciate it, all the listeners' time, and everyone have a blessed day.
Thank you so much, Josh. Take care. Bye-bye.